Imagine this. My teenage son is just skating down our quiet neighborhood street, enjoying a sunny afternoon, when suddenly he's stopped detained by the HOA patrol for a skateboard. Yes, you heard that right. A skateboard. What started as a normal day instantly turned into a nightmare. I couldn't believe what was happening right in front of our house. The HOA, who are supposed to maintain order, seemed to overstep every line possible, leaving my son shaken and me furious. But it didn't end there. The tension escalated fast when the sheriff got involved, and things took a turn nobody expected. Suddenly, the tables were turning, and the power dynamic that had felt so one-sided started to wobble. Neighbors started watching. Whispers spread, and a routine day in our suburban community became a full-blown showdown. In this story, we'll dive into exactly what happened when HOA rules clashed with common sense, how authority lines blurred, and what it really feels like to stand up for your family against unfair treatment. Stick around because the shocking twist involving the sheriff changes everything, and you won't believe how it all unfolded. By the end of this video, you'll see why one skateboard sparked a chain reaction that nobody saw coming. To understand how this even happened, you need to know a bit about our neighborhood. Our HOA is known for being strict, always enforcing rules down to the smallest detail. They patrol the streets regularly, citing people for things that seem trivial, but most of us just ignored it, thinking it was harmless. My son Jake has been skateboarding here for years without issue. It's his way to unwind after school, and the kids usually share the street without bothering anyone. That afternoon, though, the patrol seemed unusually aggressive. They swooped in, told Jake to stop immediately, and started questioning him like he'd committed a serious crime. I rushed out, my heart pounding, demanding to know why a harmless skateboard ride had escalated into this. Tension grew as neighbors peeked from their windows, unsure if they should intervene. It wasn't just about Jake, it felt like a clash between everyday life and overbearing rules. What made it stranger was how the HOA members were acting. They weren't just enforcing rules, they were acting like they owned the street, like anyone who questioned them was in the wrong. And just when it seemed the situation couldn't get more surreal, the sheriff arrived. That's when everything shifted, and the balance of authority in our neighborhood was suddenly up for grabs. The moment the sheriff stepped out of his car, the atmosphere changed. The HOA patrol straightened, acting like they were in charge. But there was a new tension in the air. This was no longer just a small neighborhood dispute. I could see Jake standing frozen, gripping his skateboard, unsure if he was in trouble or if help had finally arrived. The sheriff asked questions calmly but firmly, and it became clear he wasn't going to let anyone intimidate a kid for simply riding a skateboard. Meanwhile, neighbors began to murmur, some coming outside to watch, others secretly recording the confrontation on their phones. Whispers of finally, someone standing up to them spread quickly. Some residents admitted they had quietly resented the HOA for years, but feared retaliation. Others were conflicted, unsure who was really in the right. The HOA members tried to justify their actions, citing rules no one seemed to fully understand, while the sheriff listened carefully, taking notes. It felt like a standoff, a battle between rigid authority and common sense. And then came the twist that nobody expected. The sheriff issued citations to the HOA itself. Tension skyrocketed as confusion, anger, and disbelief rippled through everyone present. What would happen next? Would the HOA push back, or would the neighborhood finally see a shift in power? The answer was hanging just out of reach, leaving everyone on edge. By now, the street had turned into a scene that felt almost unreal. Neighbors spilled onto sidewalks, cameras, and phones capturing every moment. The HOA patrol looked shaken, their confident demeanor cracking as the sheriff methodically handed out citations, one by one. I could feel the tension in the air like a storm ready to break. Jake clutched his skateboard tighter, his eyes wide, unsure if he should feel relieved or terrified. Voices rose, some shouting in protest, others whispering in disbelief. The HOA tried to argue, pointing fingers, claiming their authority, but the sheriff wasn't having it. Every word felt like fuel thrown onto the fire, intensifying the standoff. My heart pounded as I realized just how serious this had become. This was no longer just a confrontation over a skateboard. It had turned into a clash of authority, of rules versus reason, of ordinary families standing up against a system that had long gone unchecked. The tension reached its peak when one of the HOA members made a sudden move, stepping toward the sheriff with an aggressive gesture, trying to regain control. In that split second, everything seemed to hang in the balance. Would tempers explode? Would someone get hurt? Every neighbor held their breath, waiting for the next move, knowing that the outcome could change the neighborhood forever. Just when it seemed the tension had reached its peak, another twist threw everyone off completely. Out of nowhere, one of the neighbors, a quiet man who rarely spoke, stepped forward with his phone in hand, revealing video footage that no one expected. The clip showed the HOA patrol deliberately targeting kids on skateboards, ignoring safety concerns, and even bending rules to intimidate residents. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. The HOA members froze, caught red-handed, their previous authority crumbling in an instant. The sheriff's calm demeanor shifted slightly. He now had more than just my son's story. He had undeniable proof of misconduct. Some neighbors cheered quietly, emboldened by the evidence, while others whispered anxiously, worried about the repercussions. The HOA tried to regain control, but their voices sounded hollow, powerless against the truth. At the same time, Jake's confidence started to rise. Seeing the community rally, even in small ways, he realized he wasn't alone. The situation had escalated beyond a simple skateboard incident. It had exposed long-standing tensions between residents and the HOA, stirring emotions, frustrations, and fears that had been simmering for years. With cameras rolling and the sheriff now in full control, the neighborhood held its breath, waiting for what would happen next. The air was thick with anticipation, and everyone knew the next move could either ignite chaos or finally tip the balance in favor of fairness. The tension reached its breaking point as the sheriff stepped forward, citations in hand, and addressed the HOA directly. "You cannot intimidate residents or enforce rules selectively," he said firmly, his voice carrying over the gathered crowd. One by one, he handed tickets to each HOA patrol member, citing misuse of authority and harassment. The HOA's confident posture crumbled completely, replaced by shock and anger. Neighbors erupted in applause, some cheering, others filming. As a sense of justice finally began to settle over the street, Jake's relief was palpable. He finally felt vindicated. After being wrongfully targeted, I pulled him close, proud that he had stayed calm through the chaos. The neighborhood, long simmering with frustration, now seemed united. A subtle shift in power giving everyone a renewed sense of confidence. The skateboard that had started it all had become a symbol, sparking a moment of community triumph. Just when it seemed the story had reached its conclusion, an unexpected twist appeared. The HOA president, red-faced and defiant, stormed off to his command. As he left, several documents fell from his briefcase. Among them were plans for stricter surveillance and new rules that hadn't yet been announced. The crowd went silent, realizing that while this battle was won, the conflict might not be fully over. Tension lingered, leaving everyone on edge, wondering what the next chapter would bring. After the chaos finally settled, the neighborhood felt different, lighter, more alive, as if a weight had been lifted. Conversations sparked between neighbors who had barely exchanged words before, sharing relief, laughter, and even a little pride. Jake held his skateboard like a trophy, not because of the fight itself, but because he had learned the power of standing up for what's right. The sheriff stayed long enough to ensure the HOA members left without further incident, making it clear that overstepping boundaries wouldn't be tolerated again. That in the following days, the neighborhood slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but with a noticeable shift. Parents let their kids play freely, neighbors began communicating more openly, and even the quiet voices who had once stayed in the shadows now felt empowered. The HOA, humbled and under scrutiny, had no choice but to reconsider how they operated, showing that even long-standing authority can be challenged when a community stands together. The incident sparked conversations about fairness, rules, and common sense, reminding everyone that sometimes it takes courage to defend what's right, even in small ways. And while the documents the HOA president dropped hinted at future challenges, the neighborhood had discovered something strong. A simple skateboard had changed everything, proving that standing up for your family and community can create lasting impact.